I don't know that there's a fixed answer to that. The good news is I love my wife more than anybody else I know. I love my children more than anybody else's children. So I'm compelled. In fact, other people's children can be very irritating. But it's amazing how when my kids did the same thing that your kids did, my kids didn't irritate me, but yours did. I think there's the compelling reality in my life has always been my love for my family. I understand also that if I can't manage my own household well, I don't have any business managing the church. So the priority in my life has been the salvation and sanctification of my own children, and that extends even to the grandchildren, as much as I have the opportunity to do that. So it is that driving responsibility in my heart that before God called me to pastor somebody else's kids, He called me to pastor my own, to shepherd my own, to shepherd my wife in the process. And so that's been a priority for me. And I can't really say that means that it translates into some kind of schedule. It translates into sensitivity. It translates into listening ears. It translates into trying to sense when maybe I haven't been around enough and I need to be around more. Sometimes my family's very verbal. Patricia's there are no mysteries about Patricia. I know exactly what she's thinking because she tells me, which is really helpful most of the time. And you know that's you don't want somebody not saying what's concerning them, particularly to a husband or for that matter to a wife. So yeah, so that's just an overall priority. I didn't want to lose my kids. I kind of had a principle early on that I would go to their events if they would come to my sermons. So that's kind of how it worked. And that's always been a priority. I didn't want to lose my family. And throughout the years, what that means if you're a pastor initially is that you're in control of your time. You don't punch a clock. So you need to set your life in a place where you can make the maximum impact on your family. Even in the early years of ministry when a lot was going on around here, I refused to go to every meeting that occurred every night of the week. Somebody else could decide what color to paint something. Somebody else can decide whether to do this or do that or whatever other strategies or necessities came up in the life of the church. I didn't need to be a part of that. I always felt that if I deferred leadership, I would produce leadership. But if I took over everything and ran everything, I would produce no leadership. You literally stunt people. So the more freedom you give to people, the more they develop leadership. Because freedom creates leaders because you can't be an effective leader unless you've learned to fail. So when you're developing leaders in your church, if you don't give them the freedom to fail, they'll never succeed. The only way you really succeed is when you have felt the pain of failure. So gulp a little bit, swallow hard, and let people make mistakes. Because in the end of that's a path that you've been on yourself, and that's how you develop leaders. Leaders learn to be confident in the decisions they make by making bad decisions. Good leaders make good second decisions. All good leaders make good second decisions. Bad leaders will make a decision and then try to justify it when it's a bad one. Good leaders will make a bad decision and turn it over because they don't want to live with the consequences of a bad decision, which all of us have made. So the way that works for me, that works for everybody else. So you need to, if you want to spread leadership and spread responsibility and spread the load, then you have to let people have the freedom to fail and to feel the pain of that, and they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. So that was kind of the pattern for me. That's how it all started. As ministry began to develop, I remember being in this chapel in the first years and saying, look, I can't do more than I can do humanly. So if you all decide there's a ministry that needs to happen, go do that. Just go use your gifts, do the ministry, find some other people who want to help you do it, and go do it. And just do it. Do it spontaneously, do it independently, do it personally. If you have a few other people that want to do it, I don't know whether it's a Bible study at the jail or whatever it is, a neighborhood evangelism, go do whatever you want to do. If it gets to a point where you need help because you need finances or you need more manpower, then come and let us know and we'll help you take it to the next level. And that's always the way ministry started here in this church. Guys started putting together tapes of my message in the days when they were reel to reel. When I first came, it was reel to reel, big reels like this. And there were people who recorded the message and then made copies of these big reels. And then somebody invented the cassette. And of course, I've lived through the cassette, the CD, and now the download, MP3. But it's always been somebody else who did that. I mean, that was always the strategy. So the years have allowed us to see these people who have these desires and passions and gifts for developing various kinds of ministries. You create the environment for that by teaching the Word of God, by holding them responsible, by talking about their gifts, by unleashing them to do whatever it is that's in their heart to do, and letting them follow the direction and the leading of the Spirit of God in their own lives, and then just coming alongside and help them. If I try to start everything, then I've got to keep it going, and I can't run down the line and keep spinning the plates on the sticks. So Grace to You starts that way. The people at the Master's University came to me and said, look, we've got a faculty, we've got a staff, we've got students, we just need leadership. So I provide leadership primarily to the main administrative people there. The same would be true in the seminary. The same would be true at Grace to You. There are other functions, but it's really no different in my life than somebody who is a president of a corporation that has multi-phases of operation, and over all those operations there are various people. It would be very difficult to step into this, so you sort of have to grow up in it, which is what's happened to me. But I'm today basically doing what I've always done, preparing to preach and teach the Word every single week, preaching the Word, working on books, now finished the commentaries, going through the theology, all of that. Now there's a few more books. Gospel According to Paul is now finished. The next one is the Gospel According to God, Isaiah 53. I'm still basically doing what I've always done, and then meeting with key leaders in these various ministries that God has raised up. At the same time, wanting to be available to my family, to my wife, and particularly now that the kids are gone, it's the two of us. So that's a blessing and a priority. In some ways, this is the measure of your relationship when all the kids are gone and you're just looking at each other every day. This part of life, you want to be sure that when you get here, you're happy to be looking into each other's eyes, because that's what life comes to on a personal level. So I can't answer that question by saying there's some kind of pattern in my life, except I used to talk about planned neglect. I plan to neglect everything, but the priorities for me were always the spiritual life of my family and the preparation of the Word of God and the proclamation of the Word of God. That was always it. I plan to neglect everything else. And then when I'm done with all those things that most matter, fit other things into the categories that were left in my schedule. But in order to see the range of ministry that we have developed as it has today, you have to feel secure in what you're doing and unleash people to do whatever it is that God has gifted them and called them to do, and let them go at it and not micromanage it. If you micromanage somebody, you don't need them. If you're going to be an effective leader, you have to give away responsibility, which means you have to let people fail, because you never succeed until you've tried and failed and said, I'm not doing that again. Everybody needs to eat crow along the way. Everybody needs to experience failure. Everybody needs to fall short, because when you've had the pain of doing that, you're not going to do it again. You're going to do something different. You're going to think more about it, get better counsel or whatever. So I think the thing that served me best through the years was the sense that I did not need to be in charge of everything.